We are studying Parashat Balak. Our parasha is a classic lesson in anti-Semitism. As much as the world has changed, it has stayed the same. The principles that we learn from this parasha have been used against the Jewish people for 3,000 years. For those of you that are not familiar with the story, I will give you a quick overview. There was a man by the name of Balak. Originally, he was not a king. He might have been a prince or a nobleman. And according to all opinions, he was an anti-Semite. And he had a will to curse the Jewish people. He knew that the Jewish people have power, and he knew that it wasn't going to be easy. So he went and he sought the advice of another anti-Semite, bigger than him, and that fellow, his name is Bilaam. Bilaam also happened to be a non-Jewish prophet. So he had powers, and they formed an alliance. This was all unbeknownst to the Jewish people. We had no idea that this was going on behind our backs. Balak paid Bilaam an exorbitant amount of money. He brings him on top of a mountain where he can get a view of the Jewish people, and he tells Bilaam to curse. And there were very good chances that Bilaam knew exactly when to say it, and he knew what to say. The Gemara says that God gets angry at a very small nanosecond every day. And Bilaam knew exactly when that moment was. It's a fraction of a second. And he knew when it was. And he believed that if he could start his curse at that moment, so then it would be a great tragedy for the Jewish people. Balak knew that. That's why he paid him all sorts of money. To our good fortune and good luck, God is with the Jewish people, that as Bilaam tried to curse us, instead the most beautiful blessings came out of his mouth. Blessings that are so wonderful that we use his words at our weddings, on our happiest and momentous occasions. When the bride and the groom enter, we say, Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. This is a line that we took from Bilaam. He is rolling in his grave because he came to curse us, and instead we're using his words to build Jewish families. Anyway, Balak said, well, maybe it's not working over here. Bilaam actually said, let's try a different spot. And he moved them to a few different locations. But every location, he failed miserably. The more they changed the location, the more beautiful the blessings were. Until Balak became so frustrated, and he told Bilaam, get out of here. Kum berachlecha. Get up and scram. Beat it. Waste of money. Beracha lebatala. We don't know exactly if Balak canceled the check or not. The Torah doesn't tell us. But knowing Bilaam, he probably asked for cash up front because he was a deceitful man, and Balak was probably out all of his money. That's the basic story. Next week, Be'ezrat Hashem, I'll tell you the postscript of the story, because there's a PS to the story. But I need to keep you in suspense, so you'll come back next week, so we can have a shi'ud. So I will keep you at this point. Now I want to read some of the text, and I'd like to make some observations. Vayar Balak ben Sipor. Balak, the son of Sipor, he saw. What did he see? Et kol asher asa Yisrael la'emori. He saw everything that the Jewish people did to the people of Emori. You see, if you remember last week's parasha, towards the end, the Jewish people waged a war against Emori, against that nation. And in a miraculous way, the Pasuk writes, Vayakehu Yisrael. The Jewish people smote them, Vayirash et Arso. And the Jewish people inherited the whole territory of Emori, from Arnon to Yabok. That's from border to border. Ad Bnei Ammon, until the region of Ammon. Vayikach Yisrael et kol ha'arim ha'eleh. And the Jewish people, they seized and took all of the cities. Vayeshev Yisrael bechol arei ha'emori. And the Jewish people settled in all of the suburbs of Emori. So he saw that. Vayar Balak ben Sipur et kol asher asa Yisrael le'emori. He saw this massive military defeat. But I want to point out what Balak failed to see. I didn't tell you the full story of why the Jewish people went to war. The way I told it to you sounds like we were hungry for territory, and we were aggressors, and we went to fight a war, and we instigated it, and we just wanted to annex territories. It sounds like the Jewish people were the villains in this war. But I skipped a few Pesukim before on purpose. Look what it says before. Vayishlach Yisrael malachim el Sichon melech Emori. The Jewish people sent messengers, emissaries, to the people of Emori. E'abera be'arsecha. Please give us passage through your border. We will not trespass on any fields or vineyards. Lo nishtem be'er. We won't drink your water. Bederech hamelech nelech. You know what Derech hamelech means? King's Highway. Very good. Derech hamelech is King's Highway. She's right. Which means we will take the King's Road. Whichever road you have for us, we'll take. We're not looking to damage anything. Which means the Jewish people came to the people of Emori in peace. We did not come with any aggressiveness or intent to have any military action. We came with an olive leaf. We came with a white flag. We said we don't want to make any provocation. We just need to cross the border. And not only that, we offered the people of Emori not to drink their water. What does that mean, not to drink their water? Which means on the way, there's wells. Now, if we drink from the wells, it's free water. We promised we will buy water from you in order to boost your economy. Could you imagine 3 million people traveling in the sweltering heat, and now you have kiosks set up by the Emorim selling cold water? How much millions of dollars can they make in one day? If there's 3 million people and everybody buys 2 bottles of water, you have a Jewish brain. Make the calculation. How much money they're going to make. And who's making this deal? Moses. We could trust Moses. Moses had a sterling reputation. Everybody knew his greatness. And you know what Sihon answers back? The Pasuk writes in the clearest terms, Velo natan Sihon et Yisrael avod b'gmulo. They said, no, you cannot. So now already we see a different picture. Who's starting the fight over here? Now again, they rejected us. What's the next word of the Pasuk? Vaye'esof Sihon et kol amo. Sihon calls all his army, Vayetzel likrat Yisrael hamidbara. And they came and attacked us. We did not start the war against the Emori. Vayilachem beYisrael. They came and fought the Jewish people, and therefore we were only defending ourselves. So, and we know how to defend ourselves, Baruch Hashem. So the next pasuk says, "Vayakehu Yisrael lefi hareb." So we smote the Emorim lefi hareb, something we didn't want to do, something we didn't intend. But look at the way anti-Semitic eyes see this story. They only see what we did to them, but they fail to see what the Emori did to us. This is a classic example. Sinat olam le'am olam. The eternal hatred to the eternal nation. Vayar Balak ben Sipor. He sees what he wants to see. But he doesn't talk about why we went to war against Emori. Did you tell them that we came in peace? Did you tell them we offered to give them money? Did you tell them that they attacked us first? No, that part you don't tell. You just tell everybody, look what the Jewish people did to innocent people. Poor things in Emori. They were minding their own business, and the Jewish army comes in and kills men, women, and children. Does this not sound familiar? When the Jewish people in 1967 were living in very small borders, very narrow borders, very limited borders, and all the nations around them ganged up in order to wage war. And this was not a secret. They broadcasted it on their radio stations. The world knew that the Jewish state was going to be attacked. This was clear. The enemies spoke their intention. This was not something that was a surprise. And if they would have succeeded, those 5 countries from all sides, they would have taken the Jewish nation and drowned it in the Mediterranean. And nobody would have said anything. So instead, the Jewish people defend themselves. We didn't ask for that war. Why would we ask for that war? Are we crazy? We would have to be mental to ask for such a war. We think we were going to beat all these nations, but we had no choice. The president of Israel got up in a press conference to the nation, and in the middle of the press conference, he broke down crying. That's how scared he was. Nobody thought that we would be able to win such a war. And in 6 days, not only did we push back all the enemies, but we expanded the country to Jordan, and Jerusalem, and the Golan. Not that that was our intention to expand the country. We were just trying to defend ourselves. And in 6 days, the most miraculous war. And what does the world remember? The world only remembers what we did. We took the lands of the Palestinians, we took the land of Syria, and we took Jerusalem from the Jordanians, and we took back the Western Wall, East Jerusalem from the Palestinians. You're right, but there's something happened before that. The story of Balak happens over and over again. When the Jewish army raids a flotilla that comes into their area, and all the news reporters are there, the first ones to say, look at the savages, the Jewish people. They go onto a boat of peace activists that are just coming to give Band-Aids and medicine and Tylenol and all sorts of medical supplies to the poor Palestinians. And look at the brutal Jewish people. They come on a boat and they start killing them. But they only tell you the second part of the story. They don't tell you that these people were not peace activists, that these were thugs that came with intention to provocate, with intention in order to make a spectacle, because they know this. This is the Balak syndrome. They know that the world hasn't changed. They know that they can do anything, and they'll only report how the Jewish people responded. And therefore, the Jew was always guilty. When Assad, Yamach Shemo, sent protesters to the border, it was later revealed that he paid them to go to the border. Not only did he pay them to go to the border, but he said whoever dies at the border, their family's going to get money. So they all went, and he sent busloads to the border. And what does he tell them? Make a provocation. Let Israel make a mistake. Let them do something. And of course, how did the reporters report it? When the Jewish soldiers are protecting their borders from infiltration, they say, "Why are you making trouble with these innocent pacifists? Why do you shoot bullets towards them? Why do you kill them?" When the Intifada came, this is every day unfortunately, and they blew up buses, and they sent rockets into our cities, and they blow up schools, and they blow up innocent children. It's reported. But then when the Jewish nation defends themselves and they kill notorious terrorists, then the world reacts. Condemnation. We have to call for restraint. They shouldn't go into the... You're right, we went in and killed their people. But you're forgetting why we did it. And you're forgetting that there's a big moral difference between who we target and who they target. And if by mistake, when going after a terrorist, we kill an innocent woman or child, oh, that's already denounced in the United Nations. This is a terrible, terrible thing. We have to make a resolution against the Jewish people. But there's no resolution against all the innocent victims that they are targeting. Not that it was a mistake that they were going after an enemy and they hit a bus. They went after a bus and they hit the bus. And this is something that, again, if we wanted to bring proofs to this, that the news, the anti-Semitics, they only see what they want to see. Vayar Balak ben Sipor. You know what he saw? Et kol asher asa Yisrael le'emori. Yeah, he saw everything that Yisrael did to Emori. Hey, Balak, you only read half the newspaper. You forgot the first half of the article. Because that doesn't serve him well. Because when he wants to get his nation upset at the Jewish people, so they have to slant the news, and they have to make it, of course, in a prejudiced way. Sinat olam le'am olam. Eternal hatred for the eternal nation. We go further. Balak continues. And he says, Hineh am yatsa min Misrayim. Behold, this is a nation that has come out of Egypt. What did he mean when he said that? I don't know. To me, it sounds like he's trying to connote that as if we left the Garden of Eden, as if the Egyptians were so nice to the Jewish people, and that the Egyptians were so hospitable, and look at this ungrateful nation. After all what the Egyptians did for them, and they just leave them, and they run away. Again, a skew of history, a distortion of history. We left Egypt. Egypt came and persecuted us for 210 years. 86 of those years was called Avodat Parech. That was considered unbearable, backbreaking, physical and psychological torture. What Hitler Yamashimo did in 5 years in concentration camps, Paro did for 86 years. He bathed in Jewish blood. He used Jewish babies as human bricks. And then Balak comes along and says, look at these Jewish people, after all that Egypt does for them, and they just walk out and they leave. A distortion of the history. This is what we call propaganda. And that's the way of the anti-Semite. To spread rumors, to spread all types of shikarim, all sorts of lies, and all sorts of deceit. I was once in Egypt, and we were going from Cairo to Giza, where we stayed to see the pyramids. And we had a tour guide. And on the way driving, she's showing us, this is the Nile River, this is Paro, this is Sadat's house, and so on and so forth. And then she points to a museum. She says, this is the museum of the war of 1967. I said, which war of 1967? She says, the war that you call the 6-Day War. And you have a museum. What could be in the Egyptian museum? Dead bodies? What do you have in the museum? Skeletons? Shrapnel? What are you going to show? We decimated the Egyptian Air Force in 5 minutes. The Egyptian soldiers were drinking coffee on the tarmac. And the Israelis came in and they bombed the whole Air Force in 5 minutes. What do you have in your museum? And she looks at me like I'm from a different planet. She says, what are you talking? We won that war. Amazing. A distortion of history. Which they come along and teach their children how they defended and they won. So this is what we're up against. I didn't go see it. Look what it says. The Pasuk writes, after it gives us a little of Balak's venom and his poison, Balak ben Sipor melech leMoab ba'etahi. Balak ben Sipor was the king of Moab at that time. I saw brought down from a great rabbi, Rabbi Chaim Soloveitchik. He asks, why does it only tell us after that Balak became the king, or was the king? It should tell us from the beginning. Vayar Balak ben Sipor, and Balak ben Sipor, who was the king of Moab, why does it give us his whole speech? All of his diatribes against the Jewish people, and then only after his whole derash does it tell us, oh, by the way, Balak ben Sipor, you should know he was the king at that time. Says Rab Chaim, the Gemara Gittin writes, Kol ha-metzer li-Yisrael na'asa rosh. Gemara Gittin. That anybody that campaigns against the Jewish people rises to prominence. That's one of the fastest ways for a politician to rise to a high stature. When he starts to spew anti-Semitism and starts to blame all the world's problems on the Jewish people, and he turns Am Yisrael into the scapegoat, so all the people start to rally. Yeah, it's the Jews' fault. Do I have to bring you a proof? You all know Yemach Shemo v'zichro Shem l'sha'im yirkav Erov Hitler Yemach Shemo. How he rose to power. He wasn't even of German descent. And what was his platform? His platform was to rally all the Germans against the Jewish people. Whoever campaigns against us becomes a Rosh. And that's why Rav Chaim says, Balak originally was not the king. He was just a politician. But all of a sudden he started to speak about all these things about the dirty Jews. And he started his propagandist campaign. And then what happened? They said, this guy's good. Balak ben Sipor melech leMoab ba'etai. Which means as a result, they nominated him to be the king over them. We continue the story. And I want to make a point here. Although what I'm going to tell you now is taking the story out of a context a bit, but for the purpose of saying a derasha, I have that liberty, and it's true regardless. So he called the notorious Jew baiter Bilaam, and he tells Bilaam, Lecha arali, please come and curse for me the nation. What Balak started, he wanted Bilaam to finish. Continue to slander them. Continue to defame them. Hitler Yemach Shemo v'zichro had a chief propagandist, chief of communications, a fellow by the name of Goebbels. Shem Rishaim Yirkav. And his one job was to depict to the German people that the Jewish people are vermin. And they would show them on the screen, the movie screens, rats coming out of the sewers of Germany. And then in big yellow writing it would say, Jude, Juden, in order that the people should make a connection that a Jew equals a rat. And now when they would see a Jew in the street, they were already poisoned, they were envenomed by such propaganda. But it didn't start with Goebbels. This is already the story of Balak. It's the same, just change the names and change the region and change the language as the same playbook. They're following the same playbook as was done. So he goes to Bilaam. The Gemara says, מברכותיו של אותו רשע, אתה יודע מה היה בליבו. I'll tell you the simple interpretation. From the blessings of Bilaam, you see what he had in his heart. Because he intended to curse, but his curses were reversed. So you know from the blessing what he really wanted to curse. That means if he blessed the Jewish people that they're so populated, that there's so many of them, that means his intention was to curse them, that they should be extinct, that they should be destroyed. So you just have to read the blessings of Bilaam and you'll know exactly what he wanted to say. That's the simple interpretation. But I once read that there's another form of anti-Semitism that Bilaam was trying to use. Bilaam got up on the mountain and started to praise us. And he started to portray all of our achievements, to show how wealthy the Jewish people are, and how successful they are, and how powerful they are. But what is his intent? His intent is to evoke even greater hatred. That the people say, yeah, these rich Jews, are these Jews taking our country? Were they taking all of our businesses? Were they taking... So sometimes even when the anti-Semite praises us, מברכותיו של אותו רשע, even from his berachot, you see his real intent. It's not to bless us. It's to make the Jewish people look so great and so successful that it causes the envy of the Goyim. And they say, they stole it from us, all their power and all their influence. So that's what Bilaam teaches us, a different method. Where Balak used the method of outright curses, Bilaam was a little more diplomatic. He was a little more smooth in his approach. He came up and he praised the Jewish people to death in order to invoke the anger and the resentment of the Goyim. This is the two methods that are still used up until today. The good news is that eventually Bilaam would fail. The Jewish people received spectacular blessings, and eventually Bilaam would get killed in a war by a sword. He didn't even live to 35 years old, according to one interpretation of the Hachamim. And that's really the fate of all the anti-Semites. They rise to power, they have phenomenal demagoguery, they have great oratory skills, they're able to whip the people into a frenzy of hatred, and then before we know it, they're gone. And the Jewish people outlive them, and they continue to perpetuate, and they continue to build. Who would have thought after the Holocaust that we would ever hear of another Jew? Who would ever think that there would be another prestigious yeshiva Who would have thought that there would be another prestigious Bet Knesset after they burnt 1,000 synagogues in one night of Kristallnacht? 1,000 synagogues throughout Germany. Who would have believed that the Jews would have recovered from such a deadly blow? And only a few years after, the Jewish people were celebrating statehood. They were celebrating Eretz Israel. A few years after that, they celebrated the regaining of the Kotel HaMa'aravi, the Western Wall, after 2,000 years that it was taken from us by our enemies. And look today, the country of Israel is even more prosperous than Germany today. The unemployment rate in the land of Israel is at an all-time low, and the economy is booming. You go to Germany, and they're faltering, and you see exactly only a few years later, v'nehafochu, all the German might and the German power, and how wonderful it is. I once was on a flight from Frankfurt to Tel Aviv on a German Airlines, Lufthansa, flying on a German airline. Who would believe that a German stewardess and a German captain would be flying Jews and asking them, yes, you want a kosher meal? No, I want special kosher. Take that back. I want more kosher. Oh, special kosher. Oh, there, special kosher. Should I open it for you? Yes, open it for me. Everything she had, do it for me. Yes, serve. Al-apam al-hamatam. That was the most exciting part of the flight. Every time she asked, you want something? Yes, I want another drink. Give me another drink. Just to take a nekama, to take a revenge. So at the end, the same thing happened over here in our parasha. That is the simple interpretation of the parasha. I do not have the full time today to explain this story on a much deeper level, even though there are many things that are beneath the surface over here. However, I will just give you a little window into some of the secrets that were taking place, things that are a little mystical and above us, but that were working here at the same time. This is not to negate what I just told you. What I just told you is absolutely true and fact, but our Torah can be studied on many layers. It has to be studied on the surface, and then we have to go a little beneath the skin in order to see some of the hidden treasures that are behind the veneer. I ask you today just two questions on the parasha. If they were looking to appoint an anti-Semitic king, as I've showed you, why didn't they appoint Bilaam? It seems that Bilaam was even more notorious than Balak. And I'll prove it to you. Our rabbis tell us, now I know I'm going to contradict myself now. So disregard what I told you about Bilaam's age, that he died at 35. As I said, that's only according to some opinions. Most opinions say that Bilaam was around for a long time, and he was always up to no good. As a matter of fact, it says in Midrash that when Paro wanted to start his plot against the Jewish people, he called an emergency cabinet meeting. And the Midrash tells us who his advisors were. One advisor was Iyov. Another advisor was Yitro, who eventually became the father-in-law of Moshe Rabbeinu. And the third advisor was Bilaam. Paro said, what should we do with the Jewish people? Yitro, what do you have to say? He said, don't start with them. We'll never beat them. They have God on their side. Paro did not like what Yitro said. He did not like it. That was the wrong answer. He was just looking for a rubber stamp to kill Jews. So when Yitro voted against him, Paro sent out a word to kill Yitro. That's why Yitro had to run away. So he left Egypt and went to Midian. Eventually Moshe would meet his wife in Midian, where Yitro was. Yitro was a convert. He went from being an advisor to Paro to eventually a priest, to eventually a Jew. How lucky is Yitro to become the father-in-law of Moshe Rabbeinu, and he has a parasha in the Torah named after him. Well, so does Balak, but that's another story. But the point is, they went to Eov. Eov was another advisor. Eov, what do you have to say? No comment. You see, Eov was like trying to be Pav. He was being Switzerland. He doesn't want to say kill Jews, but he doesn't want to say don't kill Jews either, because he doesn't want to get Paro upset. So he says, I don't have an opinion. Fifth Amendment. I don't want to talk. Eventually God would get back at Eov. When they asked Eov later on, why didn't you say anything? He said, doesn't matter anyway what I say. Paro's going to do what he wants to do. So why should I protest? Why should I say anything? God said, yeah, you'll learn your lesson the hard way, Eov. Eventually, later on in his life, Eov was racked with great illness and disease. His body was filled with all sorts of boils and skin lesions. Very, very painful. And he couldn't find any comfort, Eov. And he would lie in his bed the full day and just moan and groan. Oi! Oi! And God tells Eov, what are you screaming for? It doesn't help anyway. When you moan and groan, does the pain go away? He says, no, but when you're in pain, that's what you do, you scream. And God tells Eov as if to say, when there's an injustice in the world, you have to scream. The one that said, what is my screaming going to do? You learn sometimes you scream even though it doesn't accomplish anything. You scream because you're in pain, even though it doesn't take away the pain. That's Eov's story for another time. And Bilaam was the most outspoken of the bunch. Bilaam tells Paro, of course, kill them, destroy them. That means don't think Bilaam started his career with Balak. He already had a long resume against the Jewish people. Later on in history, it says, Vayavo Amalek. And Amalek came to fight the Jewish people. So the Midrash asks, Vayavo Amalek, from where did they come from? So it says they came from meeting with Bilaam. The Midrash writes that they went for advice. And they told Bilaam, they said, we know that you are a very great advisor. And we know whatever you say is usually correct. Kol hanotel etzah mimecha enu nichshal. They told Bilaam, whoever seeks your counsel does not fail. Amar lahem Bilaam. Bilaam tells Amalek, Lech ve'aseh imahem milchama. Yes, absolutely. Go fight them. Go and make war against the Jewish people. I'm going to even tell you that he was such a genuine anti-Semite that it was in his blood. The Gemara says, Bilaam is dead. He's up there or down there, wherever you're going to put him, in a great suffering. I don't want to say explicitly what they're doing to him, but you can ask your children, they know it from the yeshiva, what they're doing to Bilaam. And it says one time there was a great Roman. His name was Onkelos. Onkelos bar Clunicus. He was a goy. and he was contemplating to convert to Judaism. He knew a little black magic. After he would become Jewish, what he did was forbidden. But as long as he wasn't Jewish, he was allowed to do this. He brought down the soul of Bilaam from the other world. And he asked Bilaam, should I become Jewish? Now you would expect, after all that happened to him, after he saw whatever he told Paro, he was wrong. The Jewish people beat Paro in the end. Whatever he told Balak, he failed. All his plots against the Jewish people boomeranged against him. So you'd figure he'd finally come to the truth and tell Unkelos, listen, go to the Jewish people. They're untouchable. They're invincible. And instead, what does he tell? What does he tell them? Don't convert. Seek their bad. Go after them. What do you want to be one of them? What do you want to join them for? Join those that are against them. That means he's such a Jew hater that he couldn't even change his opinion in the heaven. Even when he's confronted with the truth, in that world that's called Olama Emet, even confronted with the truth, he was not able. So my question to you today is, why then didn't they appoint Bilaam to be the king? I think they would be more served well. Not that I'm defending Balak. Balak was also bad. So the explanation that I offer you today is brought from the Zohar HaKadosh. The Pasuk writes, Reshit Goyim Amalek. Amalek is the chief and the first of all the nations. They're called the first. That means first to what? When we write the list of Jew haters, and we write them in order of sin'ah, who is the worst, and then go down the list, the number one on the list is Amalek. How did they get that title? Reshit Goyim. Because when we came out of Egypt, the Jewish people were literally on fire. Nobody wanted to come close to us. Shame'u amim yirgazun. The nations heard what we did to the Egyptian empire, and they were trembling. Chil achaz yosheve pelashet. The people of Pelashet were filled with fear. Namogu kol yoshve Canaan. All the people of Canaan were trembling. Ele Moab yohazeh mora'ad. The people of Moab, everybody was nervous. And they made a pact among themselves. Nobody fight against the Jewish people. Because whoever fights against them is going to get burnt. But one nation had no fear. That was Amalek. Amalek was such a brazen nation that they said to themselves, yeah, the Jewish people are on fire. The Jewish people are like a hot bathtub. But you know what? There's one way to cool off a hot bathtub. You jump in it, and you get burnt, but you take some of the heat away. And therefore they hated us so much that they said, we'll attack them even at our own peril. But now at least the Jewish people, they're cooled off. Now we broke the ice. Now nobody can say they're untouchable. They're not untouchable. Amalek went and fought against them. They're not impossible to challenge. That's Amalek's hatred. Even at their own risk. But just to weaken Am Yisrael. And I don't have to tell you, it's been proven already by the great Tzaddikim that the Nazis are considered a direct descendant of Amalek. And we all know, and nobody will deny, that these were the first enemies of Am Yisrael. These are the most severe enemies. Reshit Goyim Amalek. Now, I don't know how to tell you what I'm going to tell you now. The reason is because I don't understand it fully myself. But I'm sure some of you ladies understand it already. but I'm already admitting that I have no full understanding of this. It comes from Zohar HaKadosh. Zohar HaKadosh writes that the nation of Amalek has its roots in two notorious anti-Semites. Which means, I'll tell you who they are. You could figure it out already. Balak and Bilaam, their powers of evil, they are plugged into Amalek. They draw all their powers from this nation. They are like the battery of evil. That means Amalek and Balak and Bilaam, it's all considered one. It's all from the same cloth. So you cut it this way or you cut it that way. They're all made up of the same genes. I don't say that about every anti-Semite, but those two, the Zohar HaKadosh says, their roots are connected to Amalek. And the Zohar HaKadosh proves it. If this is called a proof. What are the last two letters of Bilaam's name? Ayin, Mem. What are the last two letters of Balak's name? Lamed, Kof. That spells Amalek. That means if you take the letters of Bilaam, his last two letters, and the last two letters of Balak, so combine them, fuse them together, these two guys, you have Amalek. So therefore, this was a very important pact. Balak couldn't do it alone, and Bilaam couldn't do it alone. They needed to combine forces in order to create that strength of Amalek to fight Am Yisrael. But wait. I want to read you about a war that the Jewish people fought early on when they came out of Egypt against Amalek. Where is it? Pasuk says like this. We actually read this on Purim. Vayavo Amalek. Vayilachem im Yisrael. They fought with the Jewish people. Vayomen Moshe Yehoshua. So Moshe says to Yehoshua, that was his student. He eventually would become the leader of the Jewish people that took them into the land of Israel. He says, you go, take some army with you. You go fight. So he followed it. He did it. Was Yehoshua successful? The pasuk says, "Vayahalosh Yehoshua et Amalek." He was able to weaken them. Not only Amalek, ve'et Ammo lefi charev. He was able to weaken Amalek and his nation by the sword. How did you learn this pasuk? What does it mean? Et Amalek ve'et Ammo. Amalek and the nation. Isn't Amalek the nation? It's like saying the Germans and the German people. The Germans are the German people. What do you mean? Yehoshua weakened Amalek ve'et Ammo. Amalek is Ammo. And Ammo is Amalek. It's superfluous. I saw brought down from the great Tzaddikim, they say the following. Yehoshua, he knew he was up against Amalek. Amalek is Ayin, Mem, Lamed, Kof. All the negative energies of Amalek come from those four letters when you combine them. It's like a chemical. Sometimes you take two chemicals, put them together, and you have something beneficial. Like salt or another element that's needed. Sodium chloride, etc., hydrogen and oxygen, and so on and so forth. So you have water. Sometimes you mix two things together, you get something positive. Other times you mix two elements together, you have a bomb. So in Hebrew, when you take an ayin, and you take a mem, and you take a lamed, and you take a kof, you make Amalek, it's a destruction. That creates the power of Amalek. Yehoshua knew that he's fighting not physical people. He has to fight the powers that come from those letters. I know what I'm telling you is deep, but that's the way it is. The Jewish letters are very strong. Lashon HaKodesh, its power. Says the holy books, Yehoshua was only able to weaken the ayin and the mem. He wasn't able to get to the lamed and the kof. He was able to break the first two letters. Says that pasuk, and you said it good. Vayahalosh Yehoshua et Amalek ve'et amo. Ve'et amo means his his ayin mem. Am shelo, the ayin mem of him, of Amalek. Which part of Amalek was he able to get? Et amo. The ayin mem, and he wasn't even able to destroy it fully by Yahalosh. He was able to weaken it. So now, this is very significant, because once you break the first two letters of the name, so that's it. You got the head of the name, now the rest is easy. There's a saying in the Talmud, and I know most of you don't learn the Talmud, and I'm not recommending it. The Talmud says, Pesik reshe v'la yemot. If you chop off the chicken's head, it's not going to die. Which means to say, once you get rid of the ayin man, you took his head off. Listen, that's why, as much as they wanted to put Bilaam as the leader, they could not, because he's the ayin mem. And therefore, he already was weakened from Yehoshua. So they had to go with the stronger horse. The stronger horse in this one is Balak, because he has the lamed kuf that wasn't yet hit yet. If it wasn't for that, they would have chose Bilaam. If this is true what I'm telling you, now you understand, or I don't know if you understand, but at least you can hear it. Tell me if you find over here a pattern in what Balak says. It says, Vayagor Moav. And Moav was scared. Mepeneh ha'am. Next pasuk. The pasuk says, he sends message to Bilaam. And he says, Hine am yatsa min Misraim. Next pasuk, ve'ata lecha na'ara li et ha'am. He keeps on referring to the Jewish people as the Am, as the Am, as the Am. Simply means the nation. But now we understand what Balak was really saying. He was saying these Jewish people have succeeded already to recover the Am, the Ayin Mem. They have taken the ayin mem, and all we have left now is the lamed kof. The good news is for Balak, they only weakened the ayin mem, vayahalosh. And therefore he asked Bilaam, listen, you follow me. You'll be under me. And together we can rejuvenate the power of Amalek and attack. Now I understand something else in this parasha, which I didn't understand till now. In one of Bilaam's talks, when he gets on the mountain, I don't know why he did this, but now I know. In one of his talks, he says like this. After Matovu Alecha Yaakov. He writes like this. He opens his mouth and he starts and he says, Reshit goyim Amalek. Ve'acharito ade oved. All of a sudden, he starts talking about Amalek. And I'm wondering, what are you talking about Amalek in the middle of a curse? Or in the middle of a blessing? What does it have to do with anything? He starts talking about Reshit Goyim Amalek. Amalek is one of the strongest nations. Ve'acharito, but his end, Ade Oved. But based on this, when he saw that the Jewish people again were victorious, that he wasn't able to curse them, he said, Reshit Goyim Amalek. That the Jewish people were able to break the head of Amalek. Reshit Goyim Amalek. They were able to break the Ayin Mem. Va'acharito. And the end of Amalek, the Lamed Kof, Ade Oved. The Jewish people are going to destroy that in the future. And when is that going to be destroyed? When Mashiach comes. It says one of the orders of Mashiach is going to be, number one, to appoint a Jewish king. Number two, to build a temple. And number three, to destroy Amalek. And therefore Bilaam prophesied Va'acharito, meaning the end of Amalek, the last two letters of Amalek, the Lamed Kof, Ade Oved. We're going to lose that as well in the future. If this is true, ladies, now you understand what we say in the Amidah of Musaf, of Shabbat, every Shabbat. We say the following. Hen ga'alti etchem, acharit kereshit. What does it mean? God says, Hen ga'alti etchem. I'm going to redeem you. And you know what the redemption is going to be? The end is going to be like the beginning. Acharit kereshit. What does it mean? The end is going to be simple interpretation. The Zohar HaKadosh says, you know who the Mashiach is? We know who he is. The Zohar says that it's brought down by the Or HaChaim HaKadosh in Parashat Vaychi. The Mashiach is Moshe Rabbeinu. You thought it was David HaMelech? Another day I'll explain it to you. But take my word, it's Moshe Rabbeinu.